This is our first conversation we are diving into, and it's all about the connection between autism and mental health. We are joined this morning by Christy Almeida. She's the founder of Autism Belize, no stranger to you guys, and the advocacy that she's done, I think, is what has made her face so prominent across the country. Good morning, Christy.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
You know, we're in the month of mental health awareness, and we oftentimes say whenever there's any topic that we are spreading awareness of during an entire month, that we should continue that beyond the month itself. And so while we're closing the month, I think it's still important that we have the conversation of mental health, but connecting it to another area that oftentimes we tend to think does not necessarily see that connection.
Right. Actually, over 54% of autistics will have some sort of mental health issue. So it doesn't mean that if your child is autistic that they will be, but there is a lot of what we call comorbidities, the linkages between. So, and it makes sense when you think about the characteristics of autism. Autistics struggle with social connections and behaviors. So they're also more likely to become to suffer from depression, to have anxiety, to have, to develop a OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Thank you. I had a mental blank right there. But again, they like structure. So one sort of leads to another. As they get older in their 20s, we might see schizophrenia. You're going to see these sorts of things with a good percentage of the population, and the estimates say that over 54% of them will have something. Also, because of sensory issues, you're going to see kids, especially teens, whatever, they might develop and start cutting, which doesn't mean suicidal in the autistic sense, but just a way for them to feel. So there are a lot of correlations and unfortunately comorbidities that go along with autism.
I want to take a look really briefly at just mental health challenges in general, comparing it how a regular person might cope with that if they don't have the resources that's needed, how they can self-regulate and recognize what is real from not real, what are facts, what are feelings, and how that could be different for a person that is autistic.
Well,
how do you self-regulate?
That's the challenge, right? Self-regulation is a huge issue for autistics. They have a hard time from kids. That's why we see all the meltdowns when they're older. And we're trying to teach them basic self-regulations from they're young. However, this is still new to the country. So parents struggle to figure out, how do I teach my child to self-regulate? And then as they get older, because that's when we start to see the anxiety, depression, aggression, as we hit puberty years normally. Again, this is an unknown, and it looks different in autistics. I remember the first time a psychiatrist told me my son was depressed. I'm like, the kid that's always running around and swimming, but he takes depression meds every single day of his life, and he'll probably be on those meds for his life. And that was a big decision for us to make. That was with lots of consultations, multiple visits to different psychiatrists to get that, because when I think about depression, you think about this picture of somebody being alone in a room, crying, lethargic, whatever. And in autistics, all of this will look differently. And while I absolutely love Mind Health Connect, because you can go there and find, counselors, psychiatrists by which field, which interest, it's a fabulous resource. If anybody is looking for mental health support or want to know where to go in their region, Mind Health Connect. But when you look at that list, there's not that many professionals who are trained to work with kids or teenagers who are autistic, and that proposes a challenge because it will look differently. They will process differently, getting them to understand even emotions. I can remember, I still have this picture of my son surrounded by the kids in his classroom, and they're going, happy, sad. And they're mimicking how these emotions would look to try to teach my son to understand what these emotions are. And that was when he was standard 1 or something. It was a long time ago, but we've had to teach some of these things. And that makes it a challenge, because a lot of times this isn't something we really think about. In schools, this is what we call the hidden curriculum. It's not something in the book, and a lot of times we just assume that kids will learn things, right?
By socialization.
By socializing, by observing. When you put your child in preschool, they automatically start to learn how to share.
Yeah.
They get what are to do's or to don't, what you shouldn't do or you should, and then this is not socially acceptable. We don't necessarily have to say it in black and white as teachers. These are things the kids learn organically. With autistics, we have to teach that hidden curriculum. And this is new. This is new for parents. This is new for teachers. This is not something that's taught to you when you get what to expect when expecting and what to expect for your first 2 years. It's not necessarily in a book. And so all of a sudden now a parent has a child who is autistic and they're trying to figure this out and they're wondering, why does my child go up and hug strangers and they shouldn't do this? Or, why will they sit so closely or why won't they get this? And it's hard. And so when we're trying to deal with mental health, when we're talking about this is what I think leads to the high percentage of autistics having anxiety, medically diagnosed anxiety, medically diagnosed depression. Some of our children right now, SJC has been doing great. They have several autistics in high school and at their junior college and college levels. And academically, these kids are doing great. They're passing, they're brilliant, they're doing that. But when you talk to the families, they are still struggling making friends. They're struggling with the depression. They're struggling figuring out how to interact with girls. And these are things that you kind of learn from your friends or whatever.
They call it secondary socialization.
Yeah, and they're struggling with that.
What are some ways that those signs can be identified, symptoms of mental health challenges among the autistic? I don't know if there are things that are as clear as day to say, hey, look at that.
I generally don't think it's as clear as day. Now, I am not a mental health professional, right? But normally when I'm talking to families, especially those who are prepubescent teenagers, whatever, because that's usually when we start to see a lot of these difficulties, I'll ask if there's been changes in behavior. Generally, if you see any drastic changes in behavior with your child, if all of a sudden they're starting to get more aggressive, if they were social and they withdraw, if they're withdrawn but they're acting overly social now, anything that has a change in behavior at autistics, and as parents, we learn to monitor everything. I found the other day some of my diaries where I tracked what he ate, when he went to the bathroom, how many times he stimmed. I used to track every single thing for my son. And I think as parents, we have to be as observant as possible. And a child who wasn't sleeping a lot and is sleeping a lot, or who, is sleeping a lot but isn't. So any kind of change in behavior, because basically with autism, there is no typical behavior and it's a spectrum. So kids will react and behave differently on the spectrum.
Is seeking therapy for your autistic child the best course of action at a point when you're growing concerned?
Absolutely. I think you try and talk to a counselor. Traditionally for autistics, cognitive behavior therapy it's what's recognized and what's recommended. There are not a lot of people in Belize that can do it, but there are a few. And trying to talk to them beforehand, because a lot of times the therapist might have been trained in this but might not be as used to dealing with your specific child and your specific child's needs. So maybe before you take your child to therapy, you go and speak to the psychologist, the counselor, whomever, and talk to them about what your child is, what his challenges are. Let them know before you bring in your child and start to form that.
I think
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the basis of the conversation this morning, Christy, is to make the connection of where autistic persons could face challenges with mental health. And I think when we look at the bigger picture, we see autistic persons as persons, and we all have the ability to go through these challenges. But what I think we don't often highlight enough, and it goes without saying, you just highlighted so many ways that you have had to ensure that your child, and I imagine many other parents have had to go through that. But you've highlighted so many ways that you've had to go the extra mile to ensure that your child is taken care of because of his autistic situation. How does that affect your mental health?
So that's really, I love that segue. There have been multiple studies done that have recognized that mothers, because they studied mothers with children who are autistic, experience the same levels of stress as soldiers who have seen active combat and are suffering PTSD. We're always, according to these studies, and again, multiple studies in this flight or fight response, we're always worried, are they going to climb out? What are they going to do? Do they have friends? And we don't lose that. Think about raising a toddler who's not sleeping through the night, who's prone to meltdowns, who have challenges, you're worried about them breaking something. Well, for a lot of us, not everyone that's raising a child on the autism spectrum, but for a lot of us, we have a toddler for years and years and years. I still have a toddler who's 17, where a lot of times it's that is exactly where he is mentally too. So it's ignored a lot, but caregivers are struggling. When you add the financial burden, the burden here where you don't have access to therapies, where as teenagers you're looking at cognitive behavior therapy, when they're younger you're looking for speech, behavior, occupational therapy that very few families have access to across this country, then you're adding in all the stress that it provides to your family. Do you take your child out in public? What are you dealing with the stigma? There's just so much going on for caregivers, dads and moms, that a lot of our parents are struggling also with anxiety, depression, and mothers and fathers. Recently, one of our fathers in our chat group said, he messaged, and I was so proud of him because this was a parent that was kind of struggling for the acceptance, but has become an active part of our group, and we don't have a lot of dads that are active in the group. And he, in our WhatsApp chat with 200 other parents, shared and said, I am struggling. We haven't been sleeping. His son's going through a lot of problems, and he just doesn't know what to do.
We're talking about parents here, but I wonder if in the same family context, there's anything data-wise out there or whatever to suggest that it also affects siblings as well. Those around that are oftentimes leaned upon to be caregivers, right?
Or support.
And they know that this is their future.
Yeah.
Many siblings will tell you, I know I am going to have to take care of my brother or sister when I get older.
And it's
Imagine having to know that from your 8, 9, or 10.
Yeah. And the mental strain that takes, and I question.
And it's not a phase either.
No, and I question if sometimes it causes children to leave home early, or to abandon the home because the mental pressure is so big, the responsibility is so huge, and it may affect their behavior, even how they socialize. I don't know.
Some siblings, if you have a child who's aggressive, some siblings are trained that once their kid behaves, that you have to go and hide in your room, or you have to do this. I ran a sibling support group for a couple years in Jamaica, and I listened to them talk.
Wow.
And some would say, I know my parents had me because I will have to take care of my older brother.
Wow.
Or I am embarrassed because they never take my brother out in public, but I am the one that has, because I am the golden child, I am expected to do this, this, and this because I'm the one that they show on Facebook. They don't speak about the other. The pressures of it, and then the friends. You make friends, but you might not feel comfortable bringing your friends at home, or the priority might always be if a therapist is in, we have visiting therapists that come in, you might have a volleyball game, but everything's going to drop because we have to take your brother or your sister to see the therapist. I mean, I've had multiple doctors in multiple countries tell me I need to have another child because what's going to happen to Teo when I die? And I've had ulcers because of that. I've had ulcers, I've had to do the whole thing, but I couldn't, in good conscience, have another child just because I needed someone to take care of Mateo. and their parents that make that decision, and that's their right. I couldn't do it, but it is a real thing that the pressures on families, you know.
Correct.
I'm not saying, like, my son is amazing and I love him to death, and I've been up from 1:30 with him this morning. So if I'm talking a little fast, I've had multiple cups of coffee. But you know, he still will crawl into bed with me and cuddle with me, and I love my child. But this road, it's an amazing journey, but it's not an easy one. Wherever your child lies on the spectrum, generally it's not easy. Trying to figure it out, trying to get the support, trying to make sure that the world around, whether it's your small bubble or a bigger bubble, will understand and accept and support your child. That's a fear, right? Just every step of the way, getting them in, you know, parents are stressed out about trying to find preschools that will accept their child, trying to get into high school, trying to get through puberty. I mean, there's always the other hurdle. And for every parent, that's a hurdle. But for us, it is a little, everything is just a little bit different. It's the unpaved road right now.
What's the type of support that persons like yourself, Christy, would need from the public?
I think the general acceptance, I think awareness is coming. You can walk around now and people are more aware. But that's your first step. The next will be the acceptance. Then I think we start really getting to inclusion. And we're not there yet. People can get that child's special, but they're still not sure what to do with that child. And I see steps. We're running, Autism Belize is running a paraprofessional course in Belmopan right now. And for the first time ever, we have 12 police officers signed up to do the course. Now the course is geared for people who want to work with children, to be a paraprofessional. It's now become a support for teachers. Teachers usually sign up, parents usually sign up. But for the first time ever, we have police. And we have someone who's working at immigration that on her own, not through the ministry or anything, decided she needs to learn more. And so these are baby steps. These are like that little spark of light in a dark tunnel, but it says something. And I think when we get more where you not just can go, oh yeah, they're special, but will make an effort to interact, to help, to engage. When we start seeing that effort, then we're going to be at the acceptance stage, and then we'll start talking about inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, there's a level of social guilt when you don't know. You understand to an extent that that person is either in this position or that position, but that's like, yeah, that person, the struggle, but you don't know. And
But
so
you
for
don't
me,
know what-
there's a social guilt because, like, how do I then respond? I'll just walk away, or I'll just ride away, and I won't even bother engaging.
And I'm okay with you don't know what you don't know. And I
Yeah.
can't blame someone for not knowing. Before my son got the diagnosis, I didn't know about autism. I get that. But at what point do we have to say ignorance is no excuse?
It is
That
true.
we have to start learning. It's summer coming up. Our kids need something to do. The highest leading cause of death for children with autism is elopement that leads to drowning. How many of our kids are going to get accepted into a swim program? Who's going to try and teach them? Because they're going to be like, I would want to, but I don't know what to do. You know, the schools, we want to work with them, but we don't know how. I get that. But at what point do we say it's time for you to learn how?
Yeah.
Right? The fact that we have 12 police, which is, you know, a minuscule amount, but they came to us, we didn't go to them. That's a start, that there is some interest and whatever. But we need more of this, because I get you don't know what you don't know. I get teachers didn't learn this when they went through teaching college and UB and everything. I get that. But at some point, we have to. Autistics make up over 1% of the world's population. Right now, the CDC is saying 1 in 36 they're estimating in the US. We are seeing the numbers in schools. Go to Hopkins, go to Independence, go to Shunush, find a village and tell me you talk to them teachers, and then until you then got
They
some
know
of
somebody.
their kids.
That's
Whether it's autism
amazing.
or another neurodiversity, we are seeing this. At some point, it is on us as a community to start to learn.
Excellent.
All right. Well, Christy, we appreciate your presence as always. Connecting autism with mental health, such an important conversation for us to have. And of course, we look forward to having you, continue to having you as well.
And thank you for my power bank.
Oh, yeah. You like
Yay!
it?
Yes, you know
got
what I
one.
love about it? It has no connect wires because I keep breaking these freaking wires, and now
So-
it's the one you can rest on top.
whoa.
So I am so
Yeah,
excited.
one of the
I
tokens-
have a fancy
One of
power
the
bank.
tokens. Isn't that greater than what you know?
It is. It's definitely
It's greater.
greater than
What's
what
your
I've had
What's your
before.
thoughts on the rebranding, or what you liking?
It's
You
very
liking
cool.
the
It's
image?
very cool. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you. I'll let you know. I didn't get a power bank.
None of us
so
got a
I'm
power
bit
I got a power
envious.
bank delivered by a really cute guy.
Okay.
That was even
yeah, I
actually
did.
better.
Yeah, I delivered the
All
power
right.
bank. Guys.
So, but I will tell you, we'll go from the greatest to the greatest when you all become an accessible building.
Yeah.
Then I will come and really celebrate with you.
All right. Well,
Challenges, that's
you
your
never
next
know.
challenge.
Might
All right.
be in the works. Well, we are going to take another quick break, but please stay with us because we have loads of conversation coming up after this. Before we head out, though, we want to give you a quick motivational moment. Here's what's this morning's motivational quote.
Many of our lives' failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Thomas Edison. That's your motivational moment for this morning. Let's go to that break.
When we come back, Digi brings mega deals you can't miss.